the most important, like consider it like a game of poker. The most important thing before winning the entire pile is making sure you don't get knocked out of the game.
Hey, podcast listener, you're about to discover insider tips, tricks, and secrets to making more sales and converting more prospects into customers with email marketing. For more information about the Email Marketing Podcast or the Autoresponder Guy, go to dropdeadcopy.com/podcast. Okay, it's John McIntyre here, the Autoresponder Guy, and it's time for episode 104 of the McMethod Marketing Podcast, where you'll discover how to convert more customers with less effort by creating an automated email marketing machine that works even if you're on the beach, hanging out in the sand, building a sandcastle, because, you know, we all like to build sandcastles. We're all kids inside, somewhere deep inside. So, today we're talking to Freddy Lansky about a very unsexy topic, to be honest, but it's actually quite important, and this is hedging your bets. Now, the problem is most people get into the game, and when they first get started in business or with marketing, they have one traffic source or one product that they sell. The problem is, when they get banned from that ad network, because it does happen even on Facebook and Google, or when their product falls out of favor, or someone invents a better product, or whatever happens to be, the business dies. It explodes, and it explodes not in a good way either, in the bad way. And that's where this comes in. You really need to hedge your bets, and you really need to basically build up some protection by having multiple traffic streams, multiple products, multiple ways that your business generates revenue. So if one of them screws up, you've always got a backup, okay? That's what we're talking about today. How to hedge your bets. It's not sexy, but it's really, really important and something that's worth understanding early in the game than later, because, you can make some big mistakes that cost a lot of money further down the line. To get the show notes for this episode, go to themcmethod.com/104. Now, I've got three things to talk about today. And number one is the reviews. If you'd like to support the show, and if you're listening, I'd love you to support the show. Go to iTunes, search for the McMethod Email Marketing Podcast, leave me a review, and tell me what you think about the show. Give me the good stuff and the bad stuff. Do you want other guests? Do I speak too much? Do I ramble? Is there fluff? Or is it all very on point and helpful? Let me know, because I'll use your feedback to improve the podcast. Now, one quick thing here is if you'd like to, instead of listening to the podcast and buying training products and all that, you probably don't have the time. You may not have the time for that. And if you don't, then we should talk, because I work with clients, with small businesses like yours, to help you create more, basically create these campaigns for you. So instead of you sitting down and do the research to learn how to write the emails, to do the copy, to create the hooks, I can do all that for you. I can take all that off your hands, so you can take all that time you would have wasted doing something that you can pay someone else to do. You can do that to focus on managing and growing your business instead of doing some of this technical work. So that's where I come in. Shoot me an email, john@themcmethod.com, and we'll have a conversation on Skype this week or next to figure out if it's a good fit. Last but not least, I've got this week's McMaster's Insight of the Week, which is follow a blueprint. You need a blueprint. If you're going to do anything, whether it's writing an autoresponder, writing a sales letter, creating a business, in one sense, there is no blueprint. You do have to make things up as you go along. But at the same time, do what works. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. If something's already working for someone else, there's a good chance it's going to work for you too. And instead of trying to, be some creative rock star and come up with some amazing autoresponder, just follow a step-by-step system that shows you what to say where, how to say it. Even use templates. Templates aren't going to be as good as something completely custom, but they're going to sure as hell going to be better than nothing, which is what's going to happen if you procrastinate and put it off and don't do anything because you don't have a blueprint. So that's where McMaster's comes in. Comes with the McIntyre Method, the flagship training program on how to write a 10-email autoresponder sequence in just 4 weeks. You'll do it yourself, and you'll be able to update it and tweak it to your heart's content. And it's all based on a step-by-step system that anyone can follow. I tried really hard to keep things simple, and that's really the hallmark of that program. That's inside McMaster's. There's other training programs in there. There's also a forum where you can ask questions, get feedback, really stay accountable to the tribe, and make sure that you're following through on what you need to do to grow your business. And that is that. Let's get into this interview today on Hedging Your Bets with Freddy Lansky. It's John McIntyre here, the Autoresponder Guy. I'm here with Freddy Lansky. Now, Freddy came to me through the Dynamite Circle, which is a digital nomad community, is the best way to put it. Though I hate that phrase, man, the digital nomad. But basically, it's a bunch of people who work online and have businesses and do all that fun lifestyle stuff. And so he sent me a message, and I was like, oh, man, let's do a podcast. Let's talk about some email marketing or some YouTube stuff, or a bunch of different things. And we've settled on a topic which is it's not really very sexy, to be honest, but it's things like security. It's really, Freddie summed it up as hedging your bets, which is going to be it can be very exciting when you first get started, with Facebook or Google Ads or something like that, and you're getting a lot of traffic. But then it's sooner or later, there's going to be a problem, and you're going to get banned from Facebook, or Google's going to do one of their algorithm updates, and all the traffic to your site is going to vanish in the space of about 1 hour, which is what happened to me a couple of years ago, which it's not very fun when that happens. So you got to hedge your bets. Now, Freddy has a website on chess, onlinechesslessons.net. So if you're into chess, definitely check that out. But that's the site where a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today is going on. He's also doing this thing with No Hat Digital, I think is the name. There's a house down in Mexico somewhere, and it's for people who have an online business, need to go down, hang out. Sort of like by the sound of it, my impression, he'll probably explain. He can explain more about it in a second. Sounds a little bit like a college house, like bunch of guys. Maybe there's girls there too.
God.
A bunch of people starting businesses, probably drinking and having parties and who knows what. But all in the name of building an online business and traveling the world and quitting the rat race. So I'm keen to hear a little bit more about that too. Freddie, how you going, man?
Hey, how are you? It's quite an epic introduction.
Did I get that right about the house, man? What exactly is this house?
Yeah, it's so funny. All my friends keep calling it the real world house. Oh, you're in the real world house, but it's really not a lot of drama here. Just people doing Pomodoro sessions, waking up at 8 in the morning, crushing workout, and yeah, it's just a generally. Oh, you don't know about this? So this is I learned this one around DCBKK. It's a co-working space in Thailand. It's basically a bunch of people get in a group together, and then they do 25 minutes of working, 5 minutes off, 25 minutes of working, 5 minutes off. And during the 25 minutes you have to work, and during the 5 minutes you have to take the time off and go outside, jump on a trampoline, whatever you have to do. And before each 25-minute session starts, everybody tells each other what they're going to be working on. And this sounds kind of ridiculous, but for some reason it makes people really, really productive, because now suddenly they feel like, oh, these other people are doing work, and if I'm sitting here on Facebook, then it's messed up, and it's weird. It's like this psychology thing where it makes you more productive and not distracted, because you just did like a verbal affirmation of what you're supposed to be working on, and it sounds kind of silly and childish, but it actually works.
Nice. Okay. I've tried it before. I've just never done it in a group, so it'd be interesting to see what what the group effect is. I find when I'm in an office with a bunch of friends, well, we might work for 5. This is exaggerating it, but we might work for 5 minutes and then talk about random stuff for another 20 minutes. Do a bit more work, talk for a bit. We don't really have a routine with it, which would probably help. But anyway, so before we get into some of the stuff here, the hedging the bets, which is really the sexiest topic in the world.
Yeah.
We got Megan Fox coming on the show right here. This is what this is about today. But can you give the listener a background on who you are and what you do, and a bit about why you're so passionate about what we're going to talk about today?
Okay. Well, first of all, I was a backpacker before I became that's funny you bring up the term digital nomad. I was a digital nomad for years, but I didn't know there was a community. I didn't even know there was a word. And then people were laughing. I was like, I'm a digital nomad now. And it's funny, like all these different disparate people are kind of finding each other in these different communities and houses and online communities as well, and just sticking together. So that's a little bit of background on me. I was a backpacker, and I started this business in Argentina with a business partner of mine who's a chess master, and we started it was just private tutoring. That was our original offering, and that was about a year of misery where my business partner was teaching like 40 hours a week and using all that money to invest on making the site better and building traffic. And then we moved into digital download products, and that was just like ding 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 jackpot. Revenue went from a few K a month to 5 figures instantly. And since then, that's become our main offering are these chess videos. If you're not into chess, this is basically one of the main ways people learn chess besides reading books is they watch videos where it's generally a chessboard, and now more recently, the last year or two, chessboard and a webcam, and they talk about so-and-so opening or middle game or, the best games of so-and-so player. And it's a kind of an old school industry. It's been around for a while. It was a lot bigger in the 90s. And then kind of in the early 2000s, it collapsed, the old model of doing business where someone would spend $20,000 of a production on a DVD at a big studio and then distributed all these chess shops. And it was kind of dark ages for a few years. And we moved in just at the right time to kind of start it back up again, where we hire grandmasters to record these chess videos at home with a simple screen recording software, find a streamlined way to edit it, and get these out really, really easily. And that's kind of our competitive advantage. So that's where we are now. And then about a year ago, found all these communities, moved into email marketing, just moving into this conversion rate optimization marketing, and all this really exciting stuff that's just like, wow, this is just going to be the most cost-effective way of just expanding and scaling my business.
Nice. Okay. So what's been the biggest win? I'm curious, like I asked you, over the last few years, where's been, this is just a really quick question, but what's been the biggest win in the last year? The biggest lesson, the biggest like, boom, this is good.
The good lesson. Really just email marketing over the last year. I know it's kind of funny. We're going to talk about the dangers of only depending on email marketing, and then it's going to be preceded by me saying email marketing, but it really is. I mean, Facebook and YouTube and all this stuff are great, but you got to get the email. You got to get the email addresses, as that's just where all the conversions happen. Something about somebody clicking from Facebook or Google or YouTube. YouTube, they're quite warm as well, but still not as warm as the email traffic, and just building autoresponders. And then I'm a big Infusionsoft user now, splitting up the autoresponders by skill level. That's something else we do. And then now I listened to I think it was one of your podcasts with the guy from Deadline Funnel. We haven't checked that out yet, but I'm so excited to try to build these time-dependent sales that just work in the long-term funnel, because right now it's like each week we have a 50% sale on one specific item, and we have to like set all this stuff up, and it's not automated at all. So I think that's, really right now where the money's at.
Yeah, man, it's incredible what you can do with those deadline funnels. There's a bunch of software that you can use, and it's because adding urgency to it, adding like a discount and the urgency to it, just cranks up just cranks the sales up. It's really fascinating to watch. So when you work that into the funnel automatically, it makes your job so much easier. And it's it's like these promotions that are going out, and you just kind of sit back and collect the checks.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Absolutely. All right. So tell me about this hedging your bets thing. What's in it for someone who's going to hedge their bets? Why should this be a sexy topic?
I mean, it's not really sexy, but it's just something to think about. Like, so as I was telling you, up until maybe 13 months ago, I never like came across this whole entrepreneur community. I was just kind of doing my thing. And when I did start talking to a lot of people that run all these different businesses and networking like crazy, for example, where you're in Chiang Mai, right?
Yeah.
So many entrepreneurs there, and there was just a recurring theme where it seems to me people have kind of just one product or one traffic source, or one way of conversion, or one specific. It's just like they're putting all their eggs in one basket, and it just seems like very, very high, unnecessarily high risk. Where if you're kind of a lower level entrepreneur and you're still trying to move from 5 to 6 figures or 6 to 7 figures, it's the most important. Like, consider it like a game of poker. The most important thing before winning the entire pile is making sure you don't get knocked out of the game. And I just noticed so many people, it's like, they sell one product. Like, well, what if that product, some competitor comes out with something? I mean, could you sell their product? I mean, what's your hedge on that? What's your hedge on traffic? I mean, you get so many people depend so much on Google or Facebook, or, well, I guess not so much YouTube. And I always kind of mixed up the traffic between affiliate referrals, Google, YouTube, word of mouth, and all these different things. So if something happened, you have a little bit of a hedge, that the house isn't on fire. And it's funny, we decided in the end that we do eBay and Amazon sales, and they've never really equaled to that much, just a few percent, 4 or 5% each of our total income. And we were almost going to get rid of it, because I was listening to a lot of this whole like 80-20 and getting rid of the non-performing assets and things like that. But in terms of, as long as it's not taking up your personal time, if it's not taking up your time, then any investment you've already made that's making more than zero, there's no reason to not let it go. So that's kind of how we built our business a lot. We get YouTube ads, we get money from eBay, Amazon, and a little bit from wholesale deals as well. And it all kind of balances out a little bit. So if, say, something really bad happened on Google or Facebook or YouTube, that, our business wouldn't be wiped out in one day.
What's interesting here is I've been having this conversation with a few people here in Chiang Mai lately. It's this idea of like,
oh, cool.
People get this. Well, yeah, I mean, people end up with a business that does. I had a friend who had a business that was doing upwards of $5 million a year, and so they were as far as the revenue and the sales were concerned, they were raking it and they were loving it. They were, one of them bought a new car and, a whole bunch of cool stuff was going on. And then they didn't know how to, the balance sheet, right? The balance sheet's one of the sheets in the business tracks these numbers. It had some warning signals and things like that, and basically they were running out of cash, and the whole thing imploded.
Yeah.
And so they went from going, from $5-6 million to in debt, and then the company shut down. I think this happens a lot too, because
the bigger of a game,
people think that gravy train's never going to end. Because that's what you're talking about here, right? You have a site, you have some traffic from Google or Facebook or YouTube, and there's this assumption that, oh man, we're making so much, maybe we're making $5,000 a day. This is so great, and you think it's just always going to go on and up and on and up, and then one day something happens, and especially if you're new, if you don't know anyone who's done this or had this happen to them, or it hasn't happened to you, it's really easy to think, oh, it'll never happen to me.
Definitely until it does. But the funny thing is, like, the bigger of a game you're playing when it comes to your business, the easier it is to get wiped out. I mean, it's like at the point where we're at, I mean, we have to make like 2 G's a day just to basically break even this month. Imagine if something goes tanking, it's like, boom, you can end up with 6 figures in debt just in your company like, the higher up you go, the bigger of a game you're playing. I think it was you that mentioned as well that book, All the Money in the World. I've been plowing through a little bit. It's a really long book, but it talks about some of the Forbes 400 people that just they got a little too crazy, and just 1 or 2 wrong bets just wiped them off the map, like from billions to 30,000 a year or something like that, like really crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I think like people often think that it's money that you made. Once you've made it, it's not going to go away. You're kind of there, and you got to be cocky and relaxed, And I mean, that's one thing you mentioned here is that, like, Tony Robbins, he did that book called Money, and there's a bunch of interviews that are out there too. Tell me about that.
Oh yeah. I was okay. So I didn't read the book like you, but I did listen to the 2-hour podcast between Tony Robbins and Tim Ferriss, so it gave me a pretty solid idea of what the book is about. But it was one quote that stuck out to me from Tim Ferriss that was, I think, specifically to Warren Buffett. It's like, oh well, how do you make your financial decisions? And before, you would think he would say, oh, just trying to find the highest rate of return. But instead he said, to make sure that I can't lose. That's the most important part. So if these billionaires had 2 paths, one which they might make a very big return, but they might lose a bunch, and another one where it's guaranteed that they won't lose any money, they always take that one. And then I think it was another thing in the podcast where they talked about in the book, I don't remember who it was, but to teach their kids the lessons about how to make an investment that's a guaranteed rate of return. They bought like 5 million nickels, which apparently the value of a U.S. nickel in terms of the alloys that it's made of is worth more than the 5 cents itself. And they were like, son, here you look at it. Here's an investment you can't lose. We got these for 5 cents and the alloy is worth 8. Like, those are the types of investments you need to make. So I think it's good to take that mentality into your business where you're having multiple streams of income, multiple products, multiple traffic sources, multiple promotional sources, and kind of stick your tentacles everywhere. I mean, we even sell our competitors' products to make sure that you're always staying relevant. Look at the most extreme case of that would be Amazon, where they sell everything. How does something that sells everything on the cheapest price going to go out of business? It never is. And people say, oh, well, what about the paradox of choice, right? Paradox of choice. We should sell 2 or 3 products. You're going to be overwhelmed. Well, I say to those people, why can't you have your cake and eat it too? On one hand, have a whole range of product offerings. And on the other hand, if through your email marketing, direct mail marketing, Facebook marketing, and YouTube marketing, promote the products at the time, like your own products or those that are performing the best or the most profitable. And if things change, you still have the traffic, you still have the momentum. The only way that we could personally really go out of business is if chess becomes completely unpopular, which is not very likely. But even that it could happen. You never know. I mean, one thing I've noticed about email marketing over the last year or two, don't you feel like websites are getting so aggressive with it, with these unbalanced, like these pop-ups and just like all over the place? Like, I mean, it's crazy. I don't you feel like email market, depending too much on you? I love email marketing. I started with that, but don't you feel that right now there might be just a cold war that starts with people's email addresses because these unbalanced exchange and pop-ups and sidebar and below the article, but they're just getting their email too much, where they're just like getting kind of annoyed with each site. So maybe 2 years from now, it's going to be a lot harder to get people's email, Or maybe also what's happening with Google is so many of these emails are ending up in the promotion box, not the spam, but the promotion, which is, some people say it's okay. I think it's almost as bad. I don't know how much people are checking their promotion box, where people say, oh, well, Facebook, they screwed us all over in 2012. They said, build up your list on Facebook, and now you basically can't reach them unless you pay. That'll never happen with email. But what if it does? There's some weird scenario where Google says, oh, pay us to be a trustworthy program to get to your list. And suddenly email marketing becomes more expensive because it's a possibility. So don't depend just on email marketing. Diversify that too.
I mean, it's some good points there, but I also think though that like Google would never charge people to get into the inbox, because that'd be like Google.
Yeah, I guess that's a little too extreme.
Well, that'd be like Google facilitating like black hat spams. In a way, they're charging people like for Google ads to go and show up at the top of the search results, which is similar. But you can do that with email and pay for ads that appear in the Gmail inbox above emails. So that's the equivalent there. It's one of these things though, like I think like this is looking at the nitty gritty. If you zoom out and you look at it from that broad thing, the idea of business is you have a product or a series of products, and you have a market or a series of markets that you sell it to. And then all these different things, whether it's Facebook or email or Google AdWords, all these different things, they're all just distribution channels. So the main thing is don't depend on, the thing here is don't depend on one single channel for your marketing, which is, funnily enough, exactly what Brian Kurtz said on a podcast we did, I believe it was 6 months ago now. Brian Kurtz is I think he was the director of Boardroom or vice president of Boardroom Inc. So huge direct mail, direct response company. And that was his saying. He said he set up a site. I don't think he's using it, but he set up a site called Single Channel Marketing is Boring. But he was going from that, it's boring if you just use one channel. But the point remains is like, don't just have one channel, whether it's email or whether it's Facebook or whatever it is. You can never really know how things are going to change, but only having one channel is like having a table with one leg.
Yeah, it's definitely true. Yeah, maybe I got a little carried away. Okay, Google's not going to charge it's a little bit extreme, but I do see in the next year or two or three, email marketing is going to get tougher, because you and I are not the only ones privy to all this stuff that's going on right now. Like, oh, well, Google's getting harder to predict. Facebook's cut off their traffic unless you do organic, and YouTube's always been tough. We just got lucky that we had a market that fits for it. So what's next is whatever traffic you get, try to get their email, and it's just gotten more and more aggressive. So I can notice some of the trends, because a lot of times, so we run our site in English and Spanish, and we're actually going to expand into 3 more languages this year. And in Spanish, people are much more receptive to the idea of giving an email for the so we call them the 10 Grandmaster Secrets, just a 5 or 6 email course before we put them in kind of in the long-term autoresponder that teaches them a little bit about chess. Sometimes in Spanish, we have one box in particular, the one below the article, that in Spanish will convert 70 or 80%, whereas in English it'll just convert at 20%, because the English market is just being marketed to so hard. And another thing that maybe some similarities is, like in the late 1990s, like there used to be those pop-up ads where it'd say, hey, you won so-and-so amount of money, congratulations. And when those ads came out, they actually had like massive conversion rates. And within 2 or 3 years, it just dropped because everybody found out about it and everybody jumped on it. And I'm not saying that might happen with email marketing, because it's been around for 20 some odd years, but it does seem that right now everyone's really focusing on it. So to really hone down your email marketing, your autoresponder's got to be good, your bribe has to be good, the initial landing pages have to be, it's going to get tougher. Like, I know it's going to get tougher, especially in the English market. So be prepared for that, and also have other sources. We have YouTube, Facebook ads as well, and then just directly from Google as well. So I feel like we're pretty hedged, but it's funny, this whole thing about right now, there's like this trend among entrepreneurs where it's like, oh, cut every single, that kind of 80, I like the 80-20 idea, but sometimes people interpret it the wrong way, where it says, oh, just take your most profitable sales channel, your most profitable product, and just get rid of everything else. Well, it's not so simple. Like, maybe in the short term that might make you more money, but why not both ways, where you scale up the most profitable one, but if any of your other products or sales channels or anything else are making you money, keep them just in case.
Yeah, that's a good point. 80-20 is really easy to misunderstand, though. When I thought, when I first heard about it in the 4-Hour Work Week, I'm thinking, so what you're saying, Tim, because it was Tim Ferriss, what you're saying is that I can work for 2 hours and get the same result that I get with 10 hours. But I'm like, well, what if I want to work 10 hours? instead of thinking, well, all right, how about I just work those 2 hours on those really important tasks and then just duplicate those 2 hours? I didn't really get it at that first stage. It was like this tiny error, which really kind of meant I misunderstood the whole 80-20 thing. This was 4 or 5 years ago. But this kind of thing, if you look at like trends, because like the way we think is we think that time is like we're here and there's the past and there's the future. Time's this ongoing thing. The trend is this ongoing thing. So like like any market, anything, any skill or skill set or channel in the market, it's going to get more. Generally, it's going to get more competitive over time, which means you're going to need more skills, which means you should keep listening to the email marketing podcast. But
not a bad idea.
So all the latest trends will be right here. But this is an interesting thing with direct mail, right? A lot of people have, I think, from what I've heard, the guy friends who do direct mail, because most people have moved away from it because they're doing the internet and social media and email now. Direct mail is actually the effectiveness, I think, in some instances, is actually increased with direct mail as opposed to decreased.
Oh yeah, no, there's a big time comeback. We've just been experimenting with it. It's quite hard to set up some of the more complex stuff, but I think with email marketing. With just direct mail marketing, there's a lot of potential right now. There's a funny meme on the internet or just a little graphic that sometimes pops up on my Facebook feed where it shows like 1990s and it has, someone with a bunch of junk mail holding all the direct mail and they're like, I'll throw it out, and it says, you got mail, and they're all excited that they got the one email message. And then it shows 20 years later and it's the exact opposite, where they have a bunch of emails like, whatever. And then they got a little something in the actual snail mail, direct mail, and they're all excited about that. So your podcast has to at least contribute to our looking into direct mail marketing as well. But I do see potential with that. And I do think that moving to direct mail could be part of the game because, things go digital, but people still live somewhere. Direct mail isn't going away. And right now, no one wants to spend the money. And I wanted to do something. This is we have Infusionsoft hooked in with Fix Your Funnel, hooked in with send out cards. And one thing that I haven't figured out how to do with them is send messages that have a coupon code with their actual name on it and the time expiring date. So right now everyone kind of gets the same message. The only merge we've been able to do is their name. But we tried that with email forwarding follow-up, where after they have a successful purchase or abandoned cart or variety of different scenarios, they get these custom-made coupons that last just 2 days from the date that they get the email, and it has their last name in it. I heard on some podcasts, it might have been yours, that to put their name in the code will drastically increase the conversion rate. And I'm trying to figure out a way to do that in direct mail, where after the purchase follow-up, they get the same email with the coupon code, and boom, then in the direct mail they get their custom coupon code that would say McIntyre 23, but this offer expires on so-and-so date with that specific 48-hour or whatever week period to that specific customer. That would just be so powerful, combining all these things together.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, man. I don't think that'd be too. I don't know. Maybe I haven't tried to do that, so I don't know how hard it would be. But a good developer and some software, I reckon that's your savior right there.
A good developer. I know they're out there, right?
That's the other thing that I've noticed from the Tony Robbins book is this will probably because I don't have like a business background. A lot of people don't know that I actually dropped out of high school and then went to college and dropped out of college and then
nice.
Skipped to university. And
good for you.
Yeah, it worked out all right in the end. But because of that, I don't have.
Wait, did you get interviewed for the? You remember for DCVKK those little 10-minute interviews with that guy? Was it Till Carlos?
Yeah, I did one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, did you see mine where he was just cracking up because he was like, what do you think of higher education? And I was just like, it's a huge scam, especially in the States. And mine was the most crazy vocal. So yeah, good for you, man. You would be a typecase example of who I mentioned in that little 5-minute interview. Someone who, high school, college, it depends on if you want to be a doctor or lawyer, maybe you need to do it. But if you're trying to do, marketing and online business and stuff, if you do 5 years of that while someone else is in college, you're just going to be light years ahead of everybody else.
Exactly. But the interesting thing here is that when you don't have a business background, it's easy to go into, I first got into business. I didn't really understand money. Money is what money is and how to use it and what it takes to manage a successful business. And, reading the Tony Robbins book about money, and this is such a fundamental idea that some people are probably going to chuckle and laugh because, how simple this is. But the basic idea is spend less than you earn. And that, like, violating that single principle has put so many people out of business, and made so many people bankrupt. Like, even really experienced people who make a lot of money, and they go, and instead of, I was on a network marketing, an MLM page the other day, a sales page for a product, and this woman's story was like, we figured out this network marketing thing, started making, a whole bunch of money, and so we bought a new house and a new car, and that was her story about, like, why she should be impressed. And I was like, why we should be impressed. And I remember reading that, going, oh no, she's just digging an even deeper hole. And when this thing stops working, or when there's a problem, she might have to take 6 months off. The whole thing's gonna explode. And so
there's so many. Yeah,
that takes a while to understand. So, like, one way to increase that, to hedge your bets, is spend as little as you can.
Yeah. I don't know if it was your podcast. I think it was actually recommended to me by a friend. There was the book Profit First. Have you heard of this book? I forget the name of the author, but it talks about a lot of the struggles that entrepreneurs have, where it's like you always have this mentality, if you have with a bunch of months, maybe not completely in the red, but barely making any profit, and you're just convinced that all these investments are going to pay off, and in 2 months down the road, that's when things are really going to explode. And no. And 2 months go by, it's like, okay, after the December sale, that's when things are really going to, and this sounds just like our company. And this guy's like, look, you either have a profitable company or you don't. And that's when I realized, well, I kind of don't. Like, we're having these massive revenue numbers, but the profit is just, we have enough for my, comfy little salary to travel and things like that. But, this massive, for the amount of time that we've been working, we can't just keep assuming that, it's hard as a bootstrapper, because you don't have all this Silicon Valley funding. You have all these crazy, exciting things you want to do, but at the same time, you have to steer the ship and divide the gross from investments to grow your company, and know which ones are the smartest and the best, and take a little bit home for yourself. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? So that's kind of where you get. And this book is just, I never did the whole profit first system. It gets really crazy where they say you have 5 or 6 different accounts and things like that. But I did have one takeaway where I opened a second bank account, just a savings. It could call it savings, tax, whatever. And if there is profit, we move it over there. So we've managed to put a little nest egg there too. And that's what he recommends as well, is he gives an example, like if your just website went down today and you incurred all your liabilities without any of your revenue, how long would you have before you went chapter 11 in terms of savings? And he recommends you should have at least 2 months in the bank, just to make sure you're hedging your bets.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, you just don't know what's going to happen, and this is why it's not sexy, because, like, people love to talk about their revenue and sales, and our conversion rates are off the charts, and all this. It's just like how people like to talk about open rates. And
people like to talk about revenue a lot more than profit.
Exactly,
including myself.
Profit's misleading though. Like, I used to think that that was true, and it's true in a sense, but at the same time, like, profit just, you might if you go to a few conferences and catch a few flights, but that investment's ultimately going to pay off over the next 5 years, but all that money is going to come on under the expenses of that month, depending on how you expense it. And so then you've got no profit for that month, but technically you do have a profit, because really that expense, you could really spread that over the next 5 years.
It is true. The line gets a little bit blurry sometimes. I mean, it's funny you bring that up. When I went to DCVKK, I had to pay all that by myself, and I finally convinced my partner that me going to these conferences is actually a good investment. So we decided I get like a $1K budget a month. So now I'm just like, woohoo! I'm going to head to Phoenix. I'm going to head to San Diego. I'm going to head to Austin. I'm just going to just network like crazy. And it's so exciting. You never know who you're going to meet at conferences. You're talking to a guy in the hall, you have no idea who he is. Later you find out, he's been on CNN and Time Magazine and stuff. And you're like, holy crap, I just met these guys. I mean, that's where the magic happens, really, is the networking at conferences. And even if you're not looking for investment or clients, networking always in the long run pays. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir now. You understand, just for doing these podcasts, you get to meet all these people and just have that first touch where you guys are doing this interview together, where they're not going to forget you, and just opportunities arise that way.
Yeah, this podcast has done absolute wonders for my whole business. I've done a couple. I mentioned it a few times. I did an interview recently with someone on this podcast. He interviewed me about the podcast and how it came to be and all that. And podcasting is very slow going strategy, that one, but it makes a huge difference in the long run. So I'm not stopping anytime soon.
You can't look at it the way a web entrepreneur looks at it, like Google Analytics, like, oh, I had 204. Because who are these people really? It's like, would you rather have 100 influencers listening to you, or 100,000 nobodies listen to you. I would much rather have 100 influencers. So when you look at it like that, it's just the podcast. I've always wanted to start my own podcast. I still haven't had the chance yet, but I just think for networking, it's just such an easy way to kind of, I guess, level up in terms of your network of who you're meeting. Because, if you talk to somebody who's, the CEO of a big company and you try to pitch them something, they're going to be like, get out of my face. But if you say, hey, man, I just want to interview for 45 minutes. Like, I just love what you do. Like, people like to talk about themselves. So if it's like, yeah, of course, and that's just so incredible. And I just got into listening to podcasts this year, and I thought it was just, I didn't understand at first, and then I kind of get it. It's like for the listener, you get to hear the brightest minds, and then for you doing a podcast yourself, it's just the networking galore. It's just always your go-to thing. Everyone doesn't mind doing a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing too, the sneaky thing about it is that because when you have a podcast, everyone listens to you, but you don't like I don't listen to all of my listeners, right? So when I go somewhere, often there's this phenomenon which took a while to get used to be honest. But it's where people come over and they're like, "Hey," I'm like, "Yeah, John, what's your name?" And they're like, "Oh, you're John. Oh, I've listened to your podcast for the last year. It's great."
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's kind of like weird because you're a bit like because they feel like, because I've had this thing happen when I listen to other people's podcasts, is I feel like I know the person whose podcast it is because I spend so much time with them walking around and listening to the podcast. So I know that it's happening in reverse. This person who I'm chatting to knows all about me, and knows how I talk, and knows the jokes I like, and all that sort of stuff. And meanwhile, I've got no idea who they are.
That's great. It's just doing the networking for you while you sleep.
Yeah, I mean, even with like bigger guys, like I wonder, who's actually going to be listening, say, to this right now, who's listening to the other ones? Because I'm sure there's guys that, guys that have emailed me before. I won't mention any names, but who've emailed me out of the blue to kind of be like, oh, I've heard good things, or I've been listening to the podcast, or I've seen sometimes people sign up to the email list and go, I don't know who you are, and sometimes I hit them up. But it's amazing how it's like passive networking,
It's great. It's like when I bring my dog to the park to meet girls. It's like I just let him loose and he just
chases them down, bites them on the neck,
Yeah, well, I don't know about biting him on the neck, but yeah. It's not a rabid dog. It was fun. I actually got to bring him from Atlanta to Mexico, so we got to fly together, and I got to, speaking of feeling like a celebrity, with me and my little dog in his bag at the airport. I'm like, hey, what's up?
Nice.
Traveling with the dog.
Meeting the ladies on the plane.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like comatose because I didn't sleep at all that night. I had like a 7 a.m. flight, and I was just working until 5 in the morning. I'm like, okay, it's like almost 5 now. I'm clearly not going to sleep. So it was just a little bit of a blur. But yeah, no, I should talk a little bit about the house that I'm living at here, man. This is just crazy networking. People just running through here all the time. This has been like the coolest experience ever. I've been here since the end of January at this No Hat Digital house, and I'll
Tell me about the house. What's the concept of this house, the No Hat Digital thing?
So I guess they've only been doing the house thing for a few months. It's funny to bring that up about eggs in one basket. They think they had like a pretty bad like PBN hit in their business. So I guess one of the ways they've expanded a little bit of revenue is they do like kind of I won't say conferences, but these short 2 or 3 week training where people come and hang out. And then on top of that, for DCers and other people in No Hat House, you can also just live here for I guess it's $400 a month for a shared room, or $800 a month for your own room, and then $400 more for food. And so it's like the cleaning and the food is just taking care of you. It's really healthy. I've gone from like the last 6 months, I did so much traveling. I went all over Europe, all over Thailand. Then I went from China all the way to Italy by train, and I was just fat and out of shape and not feeling too well. And since then, just you get in such a good routine here. People hit the gym every day, working out every day, and everybody's just got the same mentality. And it's good to be around that. It's been pretty incredible. And they have a backyard where the dog just kind of does his business on his own, so I don't have to walk him anymore. So, forget about automating your business. This is like automating your life. So you have just so much more time. It's great.
Nice, man. Nice. Well, we're right on time here. So before we go, though, someone, the listener, might want to hear more about you or get in contact, or maybe even just go check out this Know How Digital thing. So where's the best place for them to go and do some of that stuff?
Okay. Well, if for people who are in the Dynamite circle, they would just, check the post there. And No Hat Digital is available at nohatdigital.com. And when you go to the homepage, you'll see right on the top, come work with us in Valle de Bravo. And you can just sign up there and sign up for the mansion. And the city is about 2 hours outside of Mexico City. And it's not too bad. It's a quiet little town, not too much distractions, but it's a good rhythm. Like people working hard during the week, and then a little bit of partying on the weekend, and it's just been great here. It's been it's a total 180 from like last year was the final hurrah of my crazy backpacking life. I used to be just so adamant about seeing new countries, and I still am. But moving places every 3 or 7 days, I feel you hit your late 20s, you want to do the slow travel life as recommended by Tim Ferriss and Dan Andrews and everybody else. So I've moved into that, and it's great.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. I'm with you, man. I've been in Thailand for, I left the Philippines 2.5 years ago. Moved to Thailand. Was like, oh, I'll just check this place out. See what
It's not all too different from Chiang Mai, because just like in Chiang Mai, you're just 50,000 baht flight away from Bangkok, or what is that, $50, whatever. I forget what the baht is. Maybe that's totally inaccurate. Whatever.
50,000 baht is almost 2 grand.
Oh, is it? Okay, I was totally.
So
off.
you're looking at like 2,000 baht to get to Bangkok.
2,000
Yeah,
baht, yeah, Bangkok. But at the same time, the town is quiet. It's got tons of entrepreneurs, and it's not too distracting, and also pretty just easygoing, laid back life. So not too different from here, where we have this town that's even quieter than Chiang Mai. It's really just a little tiny town. It's famous for this big man-made lake they have in the center where people go paragliding. And people come up from Mexico City on the weekend. So sometimes on Saturday, there's a little bit of a party, but for the most part, just a quiet town. But when you want to go into Mexico City, it's 2 hours away. And I wrote a big post on DC. I'm a huge fan of Mexico City, especially for people who were raised in the States. It's where they hail from. It's just has so many advantages, close to the States. It's cheap, so much going on. And it's only 2 hours away.
Epic, man. I like it. I'll have a link to the Know How Digital site in the show notes at themethod.com. Freddie, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. It's been a pleasure.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. If you want to discover more insider tips, tricks, and secrets about driving sales with email marketing, sign up for daily email tips from the autoresponder guy. Go to dropdeadcopy.com/podcast. Sign up, confirm your email address, and I'll send you daily emails on how to improve your email marketing and make more sales via email. You'll find out why open rates don't matter and the 7-letter word that underlies all effective marketing and much more.